Welcome to Focus on the Candidates. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Emily Leddige, and Emily is running for the school board in the state of Washington. So, Emily, is this the first time you've ever run for office?
It is the first time.
So, what made you decide to run?
I have a kiddo in the school district. He's in third grade, and
Mhm.
the board has two open seats. And I was talking about it with my partner, and I have always really enjoyed being a part of the education system. I've gone through post like secondary education, and I've always been a big advocate for those who need representation and want to have tools and resources so that they can be capable and contributing members of society. So when the positions opened up, we kind of talked about it, and I thought it would be something that I would be good at. I could bring my skills and knowledge to the school board. We really do like Olympia School District as it already is, but there's always ways that can be improved. So I thought that if I could participate and to make things even better, I figured why not. And I really do love Olympia's school district and all of the things that are there. I just think there are some things that could be better or could be changed. And I figured that I would be someone that could bring a different perspective to the school board, to the other three members that are there.
So, when people think about elected officials, they could think about mayor and city council and state representatives and federal representatives, but not much thought is given to school board candidates. Why do you feel being a school board candidate is important?
I think a school board candidate is important in the school board in general because they are the ones that enact policies and hold the people enforcing the policies accountable, which have a direct impact on students, which eventually they will not just be in school, but they'll also be part of the community. And the foundation that students are able to obtain through public education is really important. So I think although it's different than, as you mentioned, a mayor or a city council. It's just as important because it's still affecting the community at large and the future and potential productivity of the community.
Hmm. So, how many kids are in your school district? Do you represent kids from kindergarten all the way up to high school?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, what do you think are the most important issues facing kids in school today?
So I think with about 10,000 students, obviously we just had the new year start, and the projected enrollment was announced at the last school board meeting, but the final numbers or the official numbers aren't going to be announced until I want to say at least next week. So, but it's usually averaging about 10,000 students, and I think for this school district in particular, there are a lot of issues that which a lot of the people who are running have felt very strongly about as well. But the lack of communication from the board and the budget, some would deem it a budget crisis or just concerns with the budget. So I think those are some important things to be focused on going forward. Um, Usually people are concerned about budget and money. There have been concerns specifically here in Olympia about school closures, and those school closures were focused only at the elementary level. There was a list of schools that were up on, some people termed the chopping block, and the top two were the most focused on. And a few years ago, when that first happened, the community members felt very blindsided by that, and that there was really no foresight or planning. It felt to the community that that decision was made very impromptu and just a way to fix the budget problems. And so I think from all of the forums I've already participated in so far, all of us candidates running even before the primary, was done, we all addressed that because that was really the root of why most of us were running. And then it felt like the accountability and communication from the board was lacking. And I think a lot of people in the community really appreciate having that transparency and being able to have a school board that listens and actually wants to make a change. Every time we listen, it doesn't mean we do exactly what those community members say, but it's important to have that open mind and really take those concerns to heart rather than just brushing over them. So I think those are really some of the biggest issues right now in this race.
Now, in past elections, has the population that you will represent, do they vote up or down on school budgets?
Usually the population wants to focus on the budget being expanded. Recently there was concerns that the administration was getting raises while there were concerns of the budget being cut. I was unable to really dive into all of the ins and outs to really decipher what has happened in years past. I've only been in Olympia for about 1.5 years at this point, so I don't know the extent of that. But recently, I know there was that issue, and community members were not very happy that um, the admin office employees were getting a raise while nothing was being addressed for other issues in the budget.
Is technology, the technology as it's evolving, is that a big factor in school boards?
I think in general it is because the school board does oversee and put in place those policies for students and the educators. But it sounds like at this point, technology generally is not something that's being very focused on right now in this current race. Potentially, it's still an issue, and maybe some more forums later will address it more specifically. But I think overall, technology is really great, and it's really important to understand it and to be safe with it. I know that recently, I think it was at the last school board meeting, the superintendent mentioned how officially all of the schools have those smart, I called them smart boards when I was in school, but they have technically a different name now. But every classroom and even some specialized classrooms like the library teachers have those smart boards now, so it's a continuation instead of just certain classes having it. It sounds like all of the schools now and all the classrooms have those smart boards, and students are very familiar with it. Obviously, when COVID happened, most students, and especially in elementary school, got Chromebooks. And it does sound like they still have Chromebooks, and we just approved, or we, the school board, just approved an update, I believe, for newer models. And I do know that the high schoolers before school were able to go through a little bit of a Q&A, getting the new laptops, or at least the ones for this year. But I do think overall technology in schools is important. I had been previously asked about AI in schools, but
Hmm.
generally that has not been a huge topic. I do think AI is important. I've dabbled with AI. It's interesting to just see the tool, use it as a tool, not a crutch or a be all end all, but it's interesting to use it to try to understand things or just work with it. I used it just to see to help me write a paragraph on something, and it was interesting. It took my words, it revamped it. Obviously, it made it sound a little bit more polished, but I would have naturally come up with words very close to it. So I felt comfortable, working with it, but I wouldn't use it to do either my job or anything, just solely rely on it. And I think if educators are, teaching students about the pros and cons of it to use it as a tool, I think that's really important.
Do you think that AI is making people less able to do critical thinking?
I think it has that potential, and there's definitely people who want to take advantage of the tools and resources they have, and maybe that's a smart way to think about it. But I do think there is some people who solely rely on it and use it instead of using it, like I explained earlier, like as a tool to help better yourself. Um, and I think that there is population, a group of the population that would just, I guess, take advantage of it.
Mhm.
And that is concerning, especially with the conversations I've heard about teachers now having to check students' work. When I was in school, it was about plagiarism, right? Just simple copy paste. Now it's somebody else is doing the work for you, and you're not actually understanding the content. So I think if there's that education about safety and using it more as a resource and tool rather than it doing your job in schools,
Mhm.
I think that can really help um, alleviate some of those concerns from individuals that would want to just solely rely on it. Maybe they don't understand.
Now, do you think that technology is changing education? And if so, how is school boards dealing with that?
I think generally technology is changing education and many other aspects of life. This interview, for example, we're doing it on Zoom, and that's great.
Right.
Especially when COVID happened, classes were still able to be taught, students were able to still be able to learn through the Zoom platform and things like that. So I think having technology being a part of the classroom is always going to change it to an extent. Before I was in school, even when I was just in elementary school, we hardly had access to computers. We had computer labs. Most of our assignments were still very much handwritten. Then towards the end of my elementary school, we were typing things. Junior high and high school, we typed a lot of things. College was mostly all on the computer. So I do think things change and evolve. And I think with the school board's role in that, the policies and procedures that the school board puts in place directly affect that. I do know, on a tangent about technology, there's a lot of schools that have, quote, cell phone bans to help
Mm.
have students more focused in school rather than scrolling on social media or texting their friends. And I feel like that whether that's just a specific school policy or generally the school boards and school districts policy, I think it's important to have those distinctions. And that's where the school board's role plays a big role to help guide the schools as a whole so that there's consistency across the district.
Do you think that a majority of people do not understand the role of a school board?
Oh, definitely. I think people who don't generally get involved at the local level really don't understand. A lot of people did not understand when I was speaking with them that this is an unpaid position going forward in our district. And the time commitment that is required versus, I guess, the compensation is a little bit of a shock to most people. This once we get through the election, it's a little bit of a different focus compared to the mayor, city council, or sheriff, elected sheriff, and things like that. And I think the school board is a place where people feel they can air these concerns, but sometimes the school board is unable to act in a certain way because that's not their function. They have to work together in combination with the superintendent, staff, and educators. But the school board is overall helping get the procedures in place. And I think sometimes people forget that. But then there's other people who really do understand that distinction, and their only way to voice their concern because of those school board meetings is to bring it to the school board. And then the school board will then have to address those concerns, whether it's we can't do anything about that, but we hear you, we'll forward this on to the appropriate people. And I think sometimes people forget there's that distinction.
So, is school boards throughout the country an unpaid position?
I'm not 100% sure about that. My focus really has been here locally. I do know there's several places that also are unpaid or basically volunteer after the election is done, but I don't know statewide, or I don't know United statewide.
So, how many people are running for a seat on the school board this year in your district?
So the two open positions before we got through the primaries, there were three for each position. Then through the primaries, then it got down to two for each position. So there's total of four of us, but two for each position.
Now, I'm sure that you keep an eye on other races this year. Is running for school board different than, let's say, running for city council?
I think at least here in Olympia, it is only slightly different. A lot of people, um, because a lot of us, there was a lot of openings or a lot of positions open with a lot of people running, a lot of candidates. So a lot of us had to go through the primaries before getting to the general election in November. So we were doing a lot of similar things, and a lot of organizations within our county and our school district had a lot of forums and similar interviews. So the process itself very similar. Because there were just so many of us trying to do this generally the same thing, run for an elected position. So I think that process is pretty similar. But the focuses and what the outcomes for like what school board obviously focus really on school board. There are some people who have concerns about housing and things like that that can touch on school board, but that there are other candidates and positions that are more focused on, say, housing, or say about like other certain taxes and things in the city and or the county. So I think obviously the running process is similar, but because there were so many candidates, our neighboring school district, the Tumwater district, there was a lot of candidates there. So we were all in very similar functions.
So, Olympia, how far is that from Seattle?
I don't know the miles, but it's about, with light traffic, probably about 2 to 3 hours, depending on
Oh,
where you're going. And it's south. So we're actually at the port, like the Puget Sound.
so are you right by Oregon?
We're about 2.5 hours from, I think, Portland.
Okay. Uh, so, how how's the retention rate in high schools? Do a majority of kids graduate, or is there a high level of kids that drop out before they finish the 12th grade?
I don't remember the exact numbers. It was from an earlier school board meeting this summer where we talked about that. But it was a little bit lower, but in improvement, if I remember correctly, from the last year. We do have our state website that can look at schools and districts that lay out the graduation rate, and it can even go down to like standardized testing and things like that. So that was really interesting to learn about. I just don't have the numbers offhand right now.
Hmm. So, do a lot of the kids who graduate in Olympia, do they go on to college? And what percentage of them do you think are become Ivy Leaguers? If you
Um,
have any idea.
I'm not really sure about that. I do know that there is a great focus here in Olympia to not funnel people into secondary or college education. We really are expanding the idea that you don't have to be successful by only going to college. There are so many other trade schools and opportunities, and I do feel that Olympia's diversity and variety really speaks to that, because there are just so many different um oh, I don't even know how to explain, I guess, professions, different things just generally in Olympia that don't require going to college after high school. Maybe cosmetology needs a little bit of a schooling, but generally there's a lot of other options, and I think Olympia really does highlight that.
Mhm.
So I do think that was brought up recently at one of the forums, I believe, about alternatives to college. And I do believe a lot of the people I'm running with echoed what I'm saying about how there is that variety in Olympia, and it's actually really cool.
Now, do you think being a school board member is just as important as being like on the city or town council, or a mayor or whatever? In other words, another position, do you think it's as important being a school board member?
I think it is, because otherwise there wouldn't be an election for it and we wouldn't be held to the same standard as the other elected officials. So I do think it's very important. And I think it's also a way that, like I said, the community members can feel heard and seen, with enacting change. I wouldn't say very quickly because change is hard, but enacting those change in the vision more quickly because it's a smaller focus. But that doesn't mean it's any less important. On some things, I think it could be more important because we're directly affecting our students who are going to become contributing members to our communities and other communities. So I think that change, and we have those, 12, 13 years to work with them and to give them those tools and resources to help make them successful. I think that is just something that is so amazing that this is an opportunity that exists and it is equal to any other running official.
Are you having fun being a candidate?
Yes, there's a lot. It was definitely a steep learning curve. With my profession as a prosecutor, I have known people who have decided to run for judge. So I've kind of seen their campaigns from the side, but actually running as a candidate has been definitely very interesting and something that I wouldn't say that I want to do it all the time, but definitely it has brought a lot of joy and fulfillment to me, especially when I get to speak to individuals about their concerns or just talking about school policies. I've met with teachers and parents and other people invested in the community who don't even have students currently going to school. And it's just interesting to see all the perspectives and really make those connections. Whether they decide to vote for me or not, I think it's really important to get myself out there to hear what people are saying and to really think about that and how that affects how I go forward.
If you're elected to the school board, what unique qualities would you bring to the table?
I think the my profession allows me to have efficiency and transparency and accountability being brought to the table. Most of the time, I speak quickly. I can slow it down if I need to, but I'm a very animated and fast talker. But I also am able to do that slow down and truly listen. I work with a lot of people in the community for my profession, and just being there, present, listening, active listening and listening to really truly listen rather than just react like with a knee jerk reaction is something that I possess. I also like to think that I can be pretty efficient to get things done in a timely manner. And I also firmly believe in transparent communication. Sometimes I'm not going to be able to do something or have the answer, but I will try my best to find someone who can, or at least allow that individual to bring that concern. I think having tough conversations is extremely important. I've learned a lot recently that having tough conversations, even though maybe an answer might not come from it or a solution, but having that time to have that tough conversation with somebody or a group of people really allows that true understanding to come through. Understand to listen, understand to know rather than that reaction. So I think bringing those qualities to the school board is something that I'm able to do. I also do feel, even though I get very animated and excited about things, I do feel that I can think very logically and analytically and take things for what they are and try not to get down into the weeds.
So, if your fairy godmother came down to you today and gave you her magic wand and said, "You have one wish to make this world a better place," what would that wish be?
Oh man, that is such a big question. A lot of things, but I guess one wish, just generally speaking, um, I guess understanding and kindness, everyone to have that capability for understanding and kindness, because that can really go a long way.
So, thank you, Emily. I want to tell your audience to mark their calendars because on August 1st, 2026. I'm working to designate that to National Candidate Recognition Day. We are going to be celebrating our 250th birthday on July 4th, but on August 1st, I would like candidates to get the recognition they deserve to make sure that people recognize that candidates have worked so hard for the 250th birthday of America.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you. So, final thoughts?
I would just say that I am truly honored to be going on this journey. I've been quite surprised at all of the things that I'm learning about procedures and policies and just the way the community feels about certain things. And I honestly am very thankful for all of the people who have supported me and believe in why I'm running and agree with that. And I hope that more people continue to agree with that and that overall the individuals running with me are truly focused on all the students and their best interests. So I think no matter what happens between me and my opponent, I think that there is going to be someone who cares, and I think that's what's the most important, is to care about the students and allow them to be successful.
Okay, Emily, you gotta help me. Can you pronounce your last name again?
Leddige.
Leddige. You've been listening to Emily Leddige. I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Focus on the Candidates. So if you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Emily, good luck, and thank you everybody for listening. Have a great day.